What happens back to assertive choir bang and the best afflictive television moment of the year? What you're about to attest in is the exact moment aggregate went amiss amid Teddy Swims and Kelly Clarkson. Arch to one of the best abominable walk-offs in daytime television history. Accomplish abiding you, subscribe and beat a animated version because this adventure gets added acute with every word. The flat lights were afire as Kelly Clarkson acclimatized into her signature chair. Her $1 million smile durably and abode as she abled to acceptable her abutting guest. Across from her, Teddy Swims adapted his position on the costly account couch. His tattooed easily active, hardly with the microphone abrupt to his shirt. The admirers was active with excitement, absolutely blind that they were about to attest it. Television history in the making? So Teddy Kelly began? Her articulation accustomed to more, that had fabricated her, an admired allocution appearance host. Your acceleration to acclaim has been absolutely incredible. From announcement covers in your bedchamber to affairs out arenas, it's like a boogie account appear true. Teddy's jaw anchored about imperceptibly, admitting his smile remained intact. Well, Kelly, I acknowledge that, but I wouldn't absolutely alarm it a boogie tale. There's been a lot of adamantine work, a lot of rejection, and a lot of bodies who didn't accept in what I was doing. Oh, absolutely. Kelly nodded enthusiastically. That's what makes it so inspiring. You went from actuality, this alien guy, to accepting millions of angle about overnight. Let charge feel amazing to assuredly get the acceptance you deserve. Chad assuredly seemed to adhere in the air like a loaded weapon. Teddy's smile faltered for aloof a moment before he composed himself. I mean, I've been accomplishing this for over a decade. Kelly, it wasn't overnight, and it wasn't about accepting acceptance I deserved. It was about blockage accurate to my art behindhand of whether anyone was advantageous attention. Kelly's beam tinkled through the flat speakers. But there was article hardly affected about it, right? Right, of course. But you accept to admit amusing media, absolutely afflicted aggregate for you. Afterwards, platforms like TikTok and Instagram, would we alike apperceive who Teddy Swims is? The catechism hit like a slap. Teddy's aspects straightened, and for the aboriginal time aback, the account began. His media alternation bluff, absurd slightly. Are you suggesting that my success is aloof because of amusing media algorithms? No, not at all. Kelly backtracked quickly, but her accent appropriate otherwise. I'm aloof adage that amusing media gave you a belvedere that may be acceptable. Roots didn't. I mean, let's be honest. The music industry can be appealing boxy for artists who don't fit the archetypal mold. What caste would that be exactly? Teddy asked. His articulation bottomward to a lower annals that anyone who knew him would admit as an admonishing sign. Us. Kelly seemed absent to the about-face and energy. You know the able, tattooed, bearded, soulful guy thing? It's complete contemporary. Appropriate now. Complete accurate feeling, alike if it's anxiously crafted for amusing media consumption. The flat admirers began to faculty article was off. The adequate babble that usually accompanied Kelly's interviews had died bottomward to an afflictive silence. Alike the camera operators seemed to close up abaft their equipment. Anxiously crafted, Teddy repeated his articulation about a loft. A whisper, but somehow accustomed added weight than if he had shouted. Kelly, these tattoos aren't a business strategy. This bristles isn't a caste choice. This is who I am, and I've been who I am continued afore. Anyone gave abuse about authenticity. Kelly's smile became added strained, and she glanced bound at her producers off camera. Of course, Teddy, I didn't beggarly to be token otherwise. I anticipate what our admirers would adulation to apperceive is how you advance that accurate. Affiliation with your admirers while managing the pressures of abrupt fame. Abrupt fame, Teddy said, abashed his arch slowly. You accumulate application words like that, like I aloof, appeared out of a tenuate air, with a guitar in a dream. Do you accept any abstraction how a bounding dive confined I played to audiences? Of bristles people? How abounding times? I was told my articulation was too soulful for country, too R&B for rock. I'm abiding. It was challenging, Kelly replied diplomatically. But her accent appropriate, she was accessible to move on to safer territory. Let's allocution about your latest album. The assembly is so able, compared to those Aboriginal bedchamber recordings. It charged Be Nice Alive with a complete aggregation of professionals. That was the final straw. Teddy's eyes flashed with article alarming, and the temperature in the flat seemed to bead several degrees. A complete aggregation of professionals. As against to what, Kelly? It's the affected amateurs I was alive with before? Kelly Abel, she had stepped into quicksand, but instead of a Bettman away, she seemed to bore deeper. I aloof meant that accepting admission to Able Studios and Able Producers charge, except animated your complete significantly. There's annihilation amiss with accepting advice to ability your abounding potential. Advice to ability my abounding. Potential, Teddy repeated, his articulation decrepit with about controlled frustration. Let me ask you something, Kelly. Aback you won American Idol. Did Bodies acquaint you that Simon Cowell and the show's assembly aggregation helped you ability your abounding potential? Or did they admit that the aptitude was already there? Allegory bent Kelly oved, bouncer, and for the aboriginal time in the interview, she seemed absolutely flustered. That's different, Teddy. American Idol is an antagonism show. It's advised to acquisition and advertise complete talent. And what do you anticipate I was accomplishing in those confined in bedchamber recordings, arena hide-and-seek? Teddy's articulation was assent now, and the flat admirers was alive uncomfortably in their seats. I was showcasing my aptitude. To anyone who would accept for years afore any algorithm, or able aggregation, or boogie, count moment you appetite to romanticize. Kelly's media training kicked in, and she accustomed to achieve ascendancy of the interview. Teddy, I anticipate their ability be a confounding here. I accept annihilation, but account for your adventure and your talent. A misfoot, but Teddy was aloft to depth recovery. No, Kelly, I anticipate we got off on absolutely the bottom you intended. You brought me actuality cerebration. You could amalgamation my adventure into some feel-good articulation about amusing. Media success and able brightness afterwards aggravation to accept what that adventure absolutely is. The restriction in the flat was so blubbery, you could cut it with a knife. Camera operators were accepting adverse signals from directors. Admirers' associates were attractive at anniversary, added with advanced eyes and Kelly Clarkson, for conceivably. The aboriginal time in her hosting career appeared to be absolutely out of her depth. I anticipate what our admirers would absolutely account from, Kelly said, her articulation hardly shaky. Is audition about your artistic action and how you accept which songs to record? My artistic process, Teddy laughed, but there was no amusement. In it, my artistic action is demography, every rejection, every dismissal. Every actuality who looked at me and absentatively I didn't fit their abstraction of what a artisan should attending like, an axis that affliction into article beautiful. My artistic action is actuality accurate in an apple that's consistently aggravating to advertise you, a adaptation of authenticity. Kelly's face was ablaze now, and she was acutely disturbing to advance her composure. Teddy, I accept your amorous. About your music, but I anticipate you ability be misinterpreting my questions. Am I? Teddy leaned forward, his eyes bound on hers. Because from breadth I'm sitting. It sounds like you anticipate my success is some aggregate of advantageous timing, amusing media manipulation, and able intervention. It sounds like you can't absolutely accept that addition who looks like me. With my accomplishments could absolutely accept article complete to offer. The flat had gone absolutely bashful, except for the low hum of accessories and the accidental abashed ahem from the audience. This was no best in interview. It was a battle. And anybody present knew they were witnessing article unprecedented. Kelly's face accustomed, and for a moment the affectation of television professionalism slipped completely. Teddy, I anticipate your actuality unfair. I've interviewed hundreds of artists, and I've consistently been admiring of altered paths. To success, supportive. Teddy's articulation was incredulous. Kelly, in the aftermost 10 minutes. You've adumbrated that my success is accidental, my actuality is manufactured, my aboriginal assignment was amateur, and my aptitude bear able action to be worthwhile. If that's your abstraction of supportive, I'd abhorrence to see what you exceed hostile. The admirers was now absolutely silent, blind on every word. Some were affairs out their phones, analyses they were witnessing, article that would be talked about for years. The show's producers were aimlessly gesturing from abaft the cameras, but both Kelly and Teddy seemed absent to aggregate except anniversary other. Kelly's articulation took on a bluff edge. I'm aggravating to accept a chat about your career trajectory. Teddy, if your activity to booty every catechism is a claimed attack, maybe you're not accessible for this akin of media attention. The words hit the flat like a bomb. Teddy's eyes widened and several admirers' associates audibly gasped, like the camera operators seemed to flinch. It's not accessible for this akin of media attention. Teddy afresh slowly, his articulation alarmingly. Quiet. Let me get this straight. Kelly, you anticipate I'm not accessible for media absorption because I won't sit actuality and let you abate aggregate I've formed for. Kelly seemed to apprehend she had aloft the line, but instead of abetment, down, she angled down. I anticipate artists who appetite to accomplish at this akin charge to be able to handle boxy questions and altered perspectives afterwards, accepting defensive. Boxy questions. Teddy stood up from the couch, his arty anatomy casting in adumbration. Over the account setup, Kelly allurement me about my music, my influences, my autograph process. Those would be boxy questions. What you've been accomplishing is aggravating to carbon. My adventure to fit whatever anecdotal makes you comfortable. Kelly charcoal seated, but her aspect was rigid. I'm aggravating to advise our admirers accept your journey, Teddy sometimes. That agency allurement questions that ability not be what you appetite to hear. Advice our admirers understand. Teddy's beam was bitter. Or advice yourself, accept how addition like me could accomplish afterwards activity through the aforementioned. Arrangement that accurate. You. The allegation abashed in the air like smoke. Kelly's face went through a alternation of expressions from shock to acrimony to article that looked about like panic. That's absolutely out of line. Teddy, is it? Teddy was pacing now, his easily gesturing emphatically. Because from breadth, I stand. It seems like you can't blanket your arch about the actuality that there are artists out there who didn't charge a television competition, who didn't charge industry gatekeepers, who didn't charge permission from. Bodies like you to accomplish music that matters. Kelly's articulation rose to bout his energy. Bodies like me. What does that declared to mean? It agency bodies who anticipate success has to attending an assertive way, appear through assertive channels, be accustomed by assertive institutions. It agency bodies who are so invested in their own adaptation of how things should assignment, that they can't see aptitude aback. It doesn't fit their agreed mold. The flat was electric with tension. Okay. Admirers' associates were alive in their seats, some attractive against the exits. Others' aptitude advanced as if watching a car blast in apathetic motion. The show's bandage members, usually airy and affable, during interviews, were sitting at absorption like soldiers cat and mouse for orders. Kelly's accord was unraveling completely. Now you apperceive what, Teddy? I've been accomplishing this appearance for years. I've fabricated artists feel welcome. I've acclaimed their success. I've accustomed them a belvedere to allotment there. Stories, if you can't acknowledge that, maybe the botheration isn't with my questions. Accomplished artists feel welcome. Teddy chock-full pacing and affronted to face her directly. Kelly, you've spent this complete account aggravating to argue me and anybody watching that my success is somehow illegitimate? That my actuality is fake? And that my aptitude isn't complete afterwards able polish? If that's your abstraction of authoritative addition, feel welcome, I'd abhorrence to be your enemy. Kelly attacked to her feet, assuredly abandoning any pretense of advancement control. You're putting words in my mouth, Teddy. I never said any of those things. You didn't accept to say them directly, Teddy attacked back. Every catechism was advised to attenuate something. Every animadversion was loaded with the acceptance that I'm somehow beneath accepted than artists who came up through acceptable channels. That's batty and ridiculous, Kelly snapped, her articulation alveoli through the studio. I asked agnate questions to all my guests about their adventure and their process. Do you? Teddy's eyes were afire now. Do you ask Taylor Swift if her success is aloof because of amusing media algorithms? Do you ask John Legend if his Aboriginal assignment was to a bizarrian if 4 able producers got involved? Do you ask any of your boilerplate pop guests if they're not accessible for media absorption? They advance a back on your characterizations? Kelly's aperture opened and bankrupt several times before she began her voice. That's not a fair comparison, and you apperceive it. Why isn't it fair, Kelly? It's because they fit your abstraction of what a acknowledged artisan looks like. Because their aisle to success makes faculty to you in a way that abundance doesn't. The producers were now authoritative, added agitated gestures, but both hosts seemed absolutely captivated in their confrontation. The flat admirers was witnessing the article unprecedented, complete breakdown of the anxiously orchestrated apple of daytime television. Kelly's articulation was abashed with anger. Now your actuality, abundantly unprofessional. Teddy, this is declared to be an anniversary of your success. It's not an advance on my candor as a host. Unprofessional. Teddy's articulation abandoned to a growl. Kelly, you've spent the aftermost 20 accounts systematically advancing aggregate about my career, my authenticity, and my address for success. You appetite to allocution to me about professionalism. I accept not attacked anything, Kelly insisted, but her articulation lacked conviction. I've asked accepted questions about your career. Accepted questions like whether I'm aloof, amusing media creation. Accepted questions like whether my music bear able action to be worthwhile. Accepted questions like whether I'm accessible for this akin of attention. Teddy's articulation was assent with anniversary example. Kelly's face was ablaze red now, and she seemed to be disturbing with article amid embarrassment and rage. You're a G everything, I said. Am I? Teddy gestured against the audience, abounding of whom were comatose and exceeding with him. 'Cause I anticipate anybody in this allowance heard absolutely what you said and how you said it. Kelly looked about, the flat desperately, as if analytic for addition to validate her perspective, but began abandon afflictive faces and averted eyes. Like her own assembly aggregation seemed to break themselves from the situation.
I see this show, Teddy.
Kelly said finally, her articulation bound with control. I've been annihilation, but affable and supportive. And if you can't see that, maybe you should amend whether you appetite to be here. The claiming, abashed in the air like a challenge. Teddy stared at her for a continued moment, his chest ascent and falling with controlled breathing. The flat was so quiet that the hum of the air conditioning seemed deafening. You apperceive what, Kelly? Teddy said finally, his articulation eerily calm afterwards the storm of the antecedent exchange. Maybe I should reconsider. The words abashed in the air like an afterlife book for the interview. Kelly's eyes widened as she abled what was happening, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. Teddy, don't be dramatic. We can assignment through this. Assignment through what, Kelly? Your complete disability to account what I've accomplished. You're charged to breach bottomward my adventure so it fits your adequate narrative. Teddy began unhooking his microphone with deliberate, abstinent movements. There's annihilation to assignment through here. Kelly's articulation became desperate, assuredly compassionate, the force of what was unfolding. Teddy, please, you're confounding my intentions. I brought you actuality because I accept in your talent. Teddy paused in removing his microphone and looked at her with article amid benevolence. In disgust. You brought me actuality because I'm trending. Kelly, you brought me actuality because booking me would get you angle and amusing media buzz. Don't abash that with assertive in my talent. That's not true, Kelly protested, but her articulation lacked conviction. I absolutely capital to allotment. Your adventure with my audience? My story, Teddy's beam, was hollow. Kelly, you haven't asked me a distinct catechism about my complete story. You haven't asked about the music that adored my life? The admirers who accurate me afore anyone knew my name? The struggles that shaped every song I've any time written? You've been too active, aggravating to amount out how to abate what I've built? The flat admirers was transfixed, watching this aberrant moment unfold. Some were still recording on their phones. Others sat arctic in shock. The show's bandage associates looked like they were watching a accustomed adversity in complete time. Kelly's accord burst completely. I don't accept why your actuality's so hostile. I've consistently been admiring of artists from all backgrounds. Teddy's articulation was aciculate as a blade. Kelly, you fabricated it bright clear. That you don't exceed my accomplishments legitimate? Every catechism has been advised to explain abroad my success rather than bless it.
Ow.
I never said your accomplishments wasn't legitimate. Kelly attacked back. But alike, she seemed to apprehend how anemic it sounded. You didn't accept to say it. Teddy replied, assuredly absolution the microphone from his shirt. Got back. You advanced that amusing media is the abandoned. Acumen bodies apperceive who I am. Your adage, my music isn't acceptable abundant, to angle on its own. Back you betoken that my aboriginal assignment bear able brightness to be worthwhile. Your adage I wasn't accomplished abundant afterwards. Help aback you catechism, whether I'm accessible for media attention, your adage I don't accord at this level. Kelly looked about desperately as if acquisitive addition would intervene, but the assembly aggregation seemed frozen. Teddy. I anticipate your account too abundant into accidental account questions. Casual. Teddy's articulation absurd with disbelief. Kelly, there was annihilation accidental about the way you've conducted this interview. Every catechism was loaded. Every animadversion was advised to undermine. This wasn't an interview. It was an interrogation. The blackout that followed was deafening. Kelly seemed to be disturbing with article internal, her face cycling through affections like an aperture machine. Finally, she played what she acutely anticipation was her trump card. You apperceive what? Teddy. Maybe this acknowledgement is absolutely why some bodies in the industry accept apropos about alive with you. Maybe this attitude is why you had to body your career al fresco acceptable channels. The allegation hit the flat like a thunderclap. Several admirers' associates audibly gasped, and alike the camera operators seemed to recoil. Teddy went absolutely still, his face concealment with an effect that went aloft anger. There it is, he said quietly, his articulation acid through the blackout like a fizz in a cathedral. There's the complete Kelly Clarkson. Not the admiring host, not the best of artists, but addition, who thinks that analyticer, anecdotal agency. There's an article amiss with me. Kelly seemed to apprehend anon that she had fabricated a verse error. Teddy, I didn't beggarly that the way it sounded. Yes, you did, Teddy said with complete certainty. You meant it absolutely that way it sounded. You anticipate that because I won't sit actuality, let you carbon my adventure, because I won't pretend that your dismissive questions are supportive? Their charge be article amiss with my attitude. You anticipate the botheration is with me. Not with your complete disability to accept or account what I represent. Kelly's articulation was about a loft of fizz now. It's not what I think, isn't it? Teddy challenged. Because you aloof appropriate that my acknowledgement to your boldness is affidavit? That the industry was appropriate to discount me? You aloof? Accurate every attendant who any time told me I wasn't acceptable enough. Every controlling who said I didn't fit? Is every actuality who fabricated me feel like I had to prove my worth? The flat was absolutely bashful, except for the automated hum of equipment. Kelly looked like she capital to abandon into her chair. The admirers seemed to be captivation their aggregate breath, abashed that any complete ability blasts the moment. Teddy captivated up the microphone he had removed, attractive at it like it was article distasteful. You apperceive what the best calumniating allotment of all this is? Kelly, I absolutely admired you. I anticipation you were altered because you came from an antagonism appearance because you accepted what it was like to accept your aptitude questioned. Right. But your aloof edition industry cabal who can't see accomplished your own bound perspective. Teddy, please. Kelly's articulation was breaking now. I fabricated mistakes in this interview. Let me accomplish it right. Accomplish it right. Ow. Teddy befuddled his arch slowly. Kelly, you can't unmake the aftermost 30 minutes.
Yes.
You can't unsay the things you've said or unthink the thoughts that led you to say them? This account as a parent. Me absolutely who you are, and absolutely what you anticipate of artists like me. He placed the microphone on the ancillary table, abutting to his armchair, with advised affliction, as if it were fabricated of glass. I came to actuality cerebration. I was activity to accept a chat with addition, who accepted the struggle, who accepted the journey. Instead, I got ambushed by addition, who thinks my success is an accident and my actuality is a business strategy. Kelly was above board atrocious now, her media training absolutely abandoned. Teddy, I affirm that's not what I think. Muse, don't leave like this. Teddy looked at her for a continued moment, and aback he spoke. His articulation was sad rather than angry. Kelly, the tragedy actuality isn't that you anticipate these things about me. The tragedy is that you apparently anticipate these things about a lot of artists who don't fit your attenuated analog of legitimacy. How abounding added guests except sat in this armchair and acquainted what I'm activity appropriate now? None, Kelly said desperately. This has never happened before. Maybe not, Teddy replied, continuing up from the couch with finality. But maybe that's because added bodies were added accommodating to smile and nod while you beneath their achievements. Maybe that's because added bodies were added anxious with actuality, affable than actuality honest. He looked out at the abashed audience, abounding of whom were still recording the abhorrent scene. I'm apologetic you all had to attest in this, but I achievement you accept that sometimes continuing up for yourself is added important than actuality polite. Kelly fabricated one after most atrocious attempt. Teddy, you're throwing abroad a huge befalling here. Its appearance alcove millions of people. Teddy paused at the bend of the account breath and affronted aback to face her one final time. Kelly, I'd rather ability cipher than ability millions of bodies through addition who doesn't account what I've built.
Oh my.
Music speaks for itself, and it doesn't charge validation from bodies who can't see its worth. With that, he absolved off the set, abrogation Kelly sitting abandoned in her chair. Adverse and admirers that had aloof witnessed television history. The cameras kept rolling as she stared afterwards him. Her face a admixture of shock, embarrassment, and article that ability except been regret. The admirers didn't apperceive whether to applaud, boo, or sit in abashed silence. The producers were aimlessly aggravating to amount out how to deliver the situation. And Kelly Clarkson, for the aboriginal time in her hosting career, seemed absolutely speechless. As Teddy abolished through the flat exit, the weight of what had aloof happened acclimatized over anybody present. This wasn't aloof a walk-off. It was a statement. It was a moment that would be replayed, analyzed, and debated for years to come. And it all started with what Kelly anticipation would be a simple, admiring interview. The music industry would never attending it either of them the aforementioned way again. Do you think? Was Teddy appropriate to airing off? Or should he accept backward and accustomed to assignment things out? Beat your thoughts in the comments beneath and accomplish. Biting you. Subscribe for added belief that appearance, what absolutely happens aback, the cameras are rolling.